have huge influence over Middle East, the Muslim world, I mean, South Caucasus, Balkans, and other regions, which are unfortunately in a terrible situation. I guess the world have entered a new dark era. And I don't think anybody is taking responsibility to avoid the coming atrocities or to avoid this dark era to be less destructive. Look what are happening in the world, in the Middle East, and in the South Caucasus. If we don't behave, I guess, in the coming months, years, or decades, might be a dark period. We struggled in Turkey for years with our democratic Turkish, Kurdish, and Armenian friends. And we were about to be some kind of a democracy. There was a window of opportunity. Most of our Armenian friends were biased. They had every right to be biased, but I guess there was a real opportunity for this. Because, for 100 years, we have been struggling as Armenians from outside of Turkey, let's say, to make American government or state or other states to recognize the Armenian genocide. Tens of states have recognized the Armenian genocide, including the United States. Mr. Biden did it 2 years ago. But I guess it didn't heal our wound. But my point was, that big crime was committed in Turkey, and the only parliament or the only president who can heal that wound would be the Turkish parliament, or when the Turkish president recognizes the Armenian genocide, it would heal our wounds. That was our struggle. I told all my Armenian friends, we should struggle in Turkey, and there is a window of opportunity. Can you believe, with all of our struggle, we could commemorate the Armenian genocide at the Taksim Square, which is the main square of Istanbul. For years we could commemorate, and people were ready to just recognize something that has happened. Of course, they were not ready to call it genocide or something bad has happened. And unpunished crimes lead to new crimes. We have just learned, of course, everybody cares about their wound, but we got to learn again that after Granting's funeral, there were other wounds as well. Alevis had wounds, Kurds as well. Kurds were struggling, and other minorities as well, LGBTs in Turkey, and others as well. We got to know each other, and we just established a party, which was the People's Democratic Party, which is Erdogan about to shut down. And we struggled and tried to convince people, if we all come together, we can end this status quo, we can end this vicious state regime, and establish a real democratic state. But unfortunately, Erdogan, as you know, had a coalition with the Gülenists, and they had a power struggle. And after that, unfortunately, Erdogan made a coalition with the ultra-nationalists, and they ended the Kurdish conflict's peace process, and started to jail Kurds, kill Kurds, repress Kurds, and of course it had a huge impact on other struggles as well, because we benefited from the Kurdish conflict, we benefited from the European Union process, and as Armenians started to have courage about speak about our cause. But when that window of opportunity started to close, our cause were also started to repress. And after 2016, when I saw this, Turkey started to use sophisticated weapons produce sophisticated weapons against Kurds, I saw this as a threat which is going to turn its face to the South Caucasus against Armenians. Because Turkey traditionally have three identities which they use as an enemy card. One is the Greek card, the second is the Kurdish card, and third is the Armenian card. And as we know, in the South Caucasus, there was an unsolved conflict. And Azeris were getting ready for a revenge. They were building leverages. Their focus was only to take revenge. But unfortunately, we were not ready to recognize that they were building leverages. Azeris got allies with Turkey, as you know, and Turkey delivered these sophisticated weapons to Azerbaijan. And moreover, as you know, at the Israel's border there is Hezbollah, and nowadays they are just sending missiles to Israel. In return of this, Israel just formed another garrison state in the South Caucasus, which is Azerbaijan. We sometimes think they sell these weapons against Armenians. No, they have no intention about it. Their only intention is to arm Azerbaijan, just to use as a garrison state against Iran, which one day they are going to need. And Azerbaijan had another leverage, becoming allies with Israel, which, as you can understand as Americans, which means being allies with United States and making the United States turn a blind eye on whatever is going on in South Caucasus. We thought all Armenians' lives matter, don't we? Sometimes we think Armenians' lives matter to United States because they are Christians. Because we are trying to be a democracy and they are autocracy. In a normal world, it would mean something. But I believe it was always like this. Let's say it was 70% interests, let's say, worked in the United States, 30% or 20%, your being Christian or Democrat might mean something. But in the new world order, unfortunately, now this world will be and less ordered by law. I'm sure about it, and ideals or whatever your identities. This world will not be ruled by law at all. This world was always ruled by force. And in this dark era, the force, interests, or leverages will rule this world. Because there is again a great power rivalry, as you know, between China, Russia, United States, and other countries are trying to be allies with the authoritarian regimes or totalitarian regimes or the democratic regimes. That we see now, Azerbaijan made allies with Israel and Turkey, while we were turning a blind eye on it. Another leverage Azerbaijan had, which was Russia. Now, Russia, we think that Russia is our traditional ally. Don't we think Russia will just save Armenia whenever Turks or Azeris attack? But we should have taken a lesson out of the history. After the Armenian genocide, we thought, let's say, Russians will help us. Yes, somehow Russians and Armenians were together in the 1980s. And Armenia could establish the first Armenian Republic in 1918. When we were about to suffer a genocide in 1918, we stood up and fought back in Sardarabad and just established the first Armenian Republic. But then we started to fight with Turks and Azeris instead of making our country, somehow a strong country, then asking for further demands about territorial demands. We started to fight with Turks and Azeris. Azeris fought back. Moreover, Armenians fought with each other. Communist and nationalist Armenians fought with each other. There was a Russian finger in these fights. They were just manipulating these kind of fights, unfortunately. With these fights, we just lost the first Armenian Republic. Not only us, Azeris lost it at the same day. And Armenia became a garrison of Russia for decades. And when the Russian Empire collapsed, we started to fight with Azerbaijan. Before that, the atrocities had already started in Baku and Sumgayit, and other atrocities were all over the region. There was a war. We won the war, but we did not win the peace. We ignored the sufferings of the Azeris those years. Hundreds of thousands of Azeris had to flee their land. Azerbaijan did not have any kind of nationalist identity, but Azerbaijan just built a nationalist identity and filled the new generation with hatred of Armenians for decades. And their only aim, Aliyev regime's only aim, was to take the revenge. And we did not, we turned the blind on this issue as well. And just took this position. Every kind of compromise is a treason. We cannot talk about anything. Our only demand should be free Artsakh. Of course I want it as well. I want Artsakh to be free, an independent state. That was my demand as well. But in this international order, as you know, the world is ruled by United States and 5 other great powers. And if you are registered to UN as a free country, it means something. We were about to take autonomy in 1996. Do you know about it? Have you heard about it? I don't know. You should read Mr. Levon Tertatusyan's memoirs, his books. He's writing about it. There were negotiations, and during those negotiations, if Armenia would withdraw from 7 rayons, Father Aliyev would give the best autonomy with international guarantees to Artsakh. I guess all the Armenians would sign it, if this was offered today, because it would mean something to the international world that we could support Artsakh for the further demands. In 2008, we had the football diplomacy. Those years, with in return of some compromises, we could also again have the autonomy of Artsakh. But some people thought, like in 1996, any kind of compromise is a treason. Treason. In diplomacy, what I learned is, if a country is so solid with ultra-nationalist thoughts, and if it is strong, there is no problem, of course. And if it is strong about their point, I'm not going to compromise, whatever happens. If you feel strong, it's okay. If they hit you once, you hit you 10 times, like the Israel's position. They don't compromise. If they hit once, they hit 100 times, and they support their position, which I'm not in favor of course. But we were not strong, and we were not clever, and we were solid. Whatever is solid in this world breaks as ice. If you just throw ice to the floor, it breaks. But whatever is flexible, seeing the threats and opportunities, survives in this universe, because it sees the coming threat, it just adjusts its position to the coming threat and gets something, gives something, and avoid the coming catastrophes which your nation will suffer. Unfortunately, we were not there. In 2016, I saw this threat and went to Armenia to warn Armenian nation, and President, Prime Minister, everybody. I want this. This is coming. This war is coming. And if we sit at the table, we will get some kind of autonomy. Let's come to that point. But unfortunately, what their response was from the diaspora, if we just compromise, they are going to call us traitors. So we cannot sit at the table. We cannot compromise. Can you believe that kind of a state, somehow their diplomacy, their old policy is just decided in diaspora, which is really not aware about the real reality of Armenia, because Armenia is not in European geography, because geography is your destiny, as you know. Living in the middle of authoritarian, totalitarian, vicious regimes. And geography is destiny. We needed to see this because the world is not like 30 years ago. 30 years ago, human rights were much more mattered. In Bosnia, when Serbia attacked Bosnia, they were Muslims, but with the international awareness, the world cared about them and saved them somehow. But 120,000 Armenians were under blockade for 9 months. 30,000 elderly, 30,000 children. You know what I thought those days? If 30,000 penguins were under blockade for 9 months, really the world would care more than this. Human rights, animal rights activists really march about it, and the world would end this blockade. But our lives didn't matter. Our children's suffering, starving didn't matter. We need to face this reality. We sometimes fool ourselves. Oh, United States is going to help us. France is going to help us. Russia is going to help us. No, we lived this once, 108 years ago. We thought when we were suffering the genocide, this or that power would help us. Nobody helped us when we were massacred. And we needed to see the geopolitical balance have changed, and Azerbaijan had become the Israel's ally, and they built so much leverage, so United States will turn a blind eye on what's going on. I'm in DC for months. I have been speaking with so many high-rank officials. Their only sentence is this: oh, we have deep concerns. We are so sorry for Armenia. But we cannot hurt Azerbaijan. Why? Because they are allies with Israel. So this means in United States, unfortunately, some lives matter, some lives don't matter. In Israel, these days, a hatred cycle again started. Look at what happened to the Jewish babies, women, elderly. Then what is going on? What is happening to the people of Gaza, Palestinians? What is going on? And unfortunately, with this hatred cycle, they are seeding the next atrocities, which will be committed to each other, and all over the world. It will have huge impacts. And this is a huge earthquake, which is going to have huge impacts all over the region. And Armenia might be more vulnerable, unfortunately. We have to care about it. Why? Because if this war, let's say, spreads to a large-scale war, which Iran might be in it, let's say. Nowadays, some people trust in Iran. Oh, Iran doesn't want this Zengezur corridor. Iran is going to help us. Okay, this is a red line for Iran. But what if they get into this war? Would they care about us? What if a war breaks? Who is going to help Armenia? And we are, as we don't have that great army to support, defend Armenia. Under these circumstances, nations come to the terms of their reality. and try to find some kind of a peace, to buy some time, to build some kind of an army which can defend itself, to make their economy better, to buy some time to make these conditions more, for a strong army to defend their country. But unfortunately, still, we are doing this. Unfortunately, we are still blaming each other. I want to tell you this. We lost ourselves. I'm so sorry about it. All the Armenians are so sorry about it, but this is a trauma for Armenians, all of us. But we have no time to mourn. No time to mourn. Now Armenia is at stake. Friends, Armenia is at stake. As you know, Turkish nationalist symbol is wolf. And as you know, there is a saying in Turkish, wolves like to misty weather. All our sufferings mostly happened in misty weathers. Nobody would thought, in the beginning of 1914, we might suffer the Armenian genocide. But when the World War just erupted, we suffered the Armenian genocide. Now Turkey has consolidated the nationalism, and in Azerbaijan, as you know, the new generation is filled with Armenian hatred. And if a large-scale war erupts, even if it doesn't erupt, they like this kind of misty weather, Armenia will be at stake. And they want to open this kind of corridor. And there is a Russian finger in it, unfortunately. Because Russia does not want a kind of a democracy in its back garden. It's a success story. I was there a week ago only. I saw the new generation. Aliyev or Azeris have oil and natural gas. We have our democracy. We have our brains. And with a democratic habitat, really with IT sector and so many sectors, we are doing well. Our economy is doing well. And in 5 to 10 years, time will really work in our favor. And Armenia will have a better economy, which is going to create tax, and with that tax, we might have the ability to defend our country. But for this, we need to have this time. We need to avoid this coming threat. How we can do it? Two things. First, as I told you, we have no leverage at all. But we have a leverage. Our nation, Armenian nation, and our friends, not only Armenians. We have friends. We have friends all over the world. We need a unity. First, we need to start with the Armenian nation. Start to criticize each other and unite. Because Azeris see us as vulnerable. Because, let's say, some Armenians only blame Prime Minister and they blame this and that. They saw this is a weakness. Our nation should be our biggest strength, but now it is, unfortunately, it is a weakness because there is a division in our nation. We need a unity to stand up against the coming threat. If Aliyev sees that we are united, we will fight if they attack till the last man and woman. If they see the spirit like the Sardarabad spirit, they will not attack. Second of all, we need to convince other powers that this is not in favor of the United States as well. Because I guess only Mr. Biden can avoid this coming threat. But they have no intention to do it. So I guess we have a community here, Armenians or other friends have communities here. If we put pressure on our Congress people, senators, put pressure on administration, Mr. Biden would care about it. And we need to show them leverage as well. Because Turks want this corridor to reach to the new Silk Road. As you know, they want the new Silk Road to bypass Iran. And that Silk Road, if they bypass Armenia as well, is going to be an authoritarian Silk Road. From China, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, if they bypass Armenia. And it will be the control of Russians, of course, if they attack, because it is the agreement was that the Syunik will be controlled by Russians, then Turkey. It is going to be all authoritarian road. It is not in US interest. We need to explain this as well. Then we can really explain this. Second of all, I have an offer to you. For 108 years, we put, as Armenians, all our energy, 90-95% of our energy to the past. That is what we know. We live always in the past and live in victim. You know? Oh, Turks killed us, they killed us again and again, they killed Hrant Dink, they killed Kselak, and then again we are suffered. Then we suffered in Artsakh. We are always living this victimhood. But what is the outcome? Let's see, what is the outcome? No, Mr. Biden just recognized the Armenian genocide. What happened to the Turks? Did they pay any price? They downplayed it. They don't care about it. Because Mr. Biden just said, okay, I will recognize it, but forget about it. We'll work together. I'll give you F-16s in return of Sweden accession. I'll give you money in return of this. They have transactional relationship, and they will have, because Turkey has a strategic importance. And they will have in the coming decades as well. So, being stuck in the past is not in our favor. We have to see this. I don't mean that we will forget past. Of course, as you know, my main effort was to convince Turks to recognize the Armenian genocide, but I did it in Turkey. Our nation should focus on future. If we put all our energy to the future, we can create a great nation. We can make Armenia great. Did I sound like somebody? We can make Armenia great. No, because unfortunately, we were great maybe 1,000 years ago. During the Dikran's, as you know, kingdoms, we had that great period in, as you know, Sis and others. There was a great centuries, but it was 1,000 years ago when we just built Ahtamars and others. It was a great period. But then we could never be, because why? We couldn't just get out of this thought that we couldn't be a big great power. Why? Persians came, conquered our land, Arabs came, conquered our land, then Turks came, then others came. No, we couldn't create a great diplomacy which can see the risks, what is going on, how can I avoid this risk. We couldn't, let's say, in United States, let's see to our institutions. They are all dealing with the past. Do you have any kind of institution which cares about the future? How can we make Armenia great? How can we have a healthy relationship, let's say, with diaspora and Armenia? Do we have that type of institution who is thinking about it? Yeah. There is a very unhealthy relationship between the diaspora and Armenia. Somebody come and tell me, what kind of a relationship do we have? It is a very unhealthy relationship. It has nothing to do with the reality of Armenia. Really, we need to go there. Whatever our profession is, we need to go there. What is your profession? If you are an engineer, you need to go there and contribute them. Let's say, to build arms, I am against arms. I was really objecting to this in Turkey. Why are you? But if somebody has a gun and you say, please don't do it, whatever, please, they don't listen to it. You have to have an arm to stop them, that show them that you are not vulgar. Or, if somebody is coming to a heavyweight boxer comes to hit me, I have nothing to do. I need to call somebody else. Build leverages, build allies. That is what we should do. We need to think about these things. That is why all of us have to take responsibility to avoid the coming threat. Because it is going to hurt so much. Armenia is our heart. They broke our legs. They broke our arms. But we can heal them. With a beating heart, we can heal them again. With our brains, with the new generation, we can heal them again. The new generation is really shining. And the first generation did their best, really, believe me. My grandparents, I know them. After that catastrophe, they did their best. And the second generation, my father's generation, did their best. And my generation, third generation, we tried to do our best. But what I recommend to the new generation, there are so many youngsters here, don't listen to us so much. No, because we got stuck in the past.
True.
Now you have a future now. You need to build your future. You need to focus on building a future not only with Armenians, with Turkish, Kurdish, Azeri, and other young friends, believing in coexistence, about being strong. When somebody comes to hit you, you have to hit them twice. But when somebody extends their hands, Turkish or Kurdish friends, you need to shake that hand. That is what we need to do. The strategy should be being ready for peace and being ready for war. Both should be. And peace is in our favor, that's what I believe. But war is Azerbaijan's favor. I'm sure Mr. Aliyev's horror movie is peace. I'm sure about it. He cannot sleep. Oh, if peace happens, what will I do? Because I have been using Armenia as an enemy for decades. I have been filling Azeris with Armenian hatred and stealing their money. Let's say corruption. He has tens of billions of dollars in the Western banks. Then this hatred ends. I'm sure Azeris people is going to ask, "Hey, boss, you are so rich. Why am I poor?" They are going to ask it, and they will remember when this hatred ends. Oh, we used to live with Armenians. Our parents used to live with Armenians. Let's start reconciliation. Let's start to talk about it. When we open the Turkish border, people will get to know each other. In the Turkish parliament, the most sentence was, when I was just elected, I went there, everybody was looking at me, what kind of somebody is this? This is Armenian, blah, blah. And they came and always asking in the first year, "Garo, how can you be an Armenian? You are a good man." They were always asking this, because they don't know anything about Armenians. They were taught about Armenians, and with bias, of course, thoughts, because the only things they know is Armenians betrayed us, so we had to kill them, and they are blaming us that, oh, you forced us to kill you. You forced us to kill you because you betrayed us. So we need to change this equation. We need to show that we are not their enemies. And peace is in favor of Armenians. That I want to underline this. And I want to end this sentence. I am telling this to the new generation, by the way. All of us, I'm sorry. I'm taking this to everybody. We need to focus on this sentence. This should be our last catastrophe. This should be our last catastrophe. And no more humiliation. Mr. Aliyev, you see, what did he do? He's stepping on our flag. Why is he doing it? Because he sees us vulnerable. If we unite, he will not be able to do it. This should be our last catastrophe. All of us, when you get home, please think about it. How can we make this our last catastrophe? Thank you very much. Rojava, Syrian Kurdistan. As you know, as I underlined, last 3 decades, the world cared about human rights. That is, and my party's ideology, and the ideology in Rojava believes in coexistence. And in Rojava, there is a coexistence that the northern region of Rojava. What we are trying to establish is coexistence. all the identities live together. Syrians, Armenians, Arabs and Kurds, Shias, Sunnis, Alevis, Christians, Jews, all live together. That is a really safe haven. But those are romantic dreams now, unfortunately. 10 years ago, the world cared about, oh, what a wonderful thing is it. Really, it's women fighters, let's say. Gender equality, human rights cared and mattered, and the world cared about it. But as you know, some great powers know how to manipulate things. There was a refugee flow to Turkey, as you know. And Erdogan was vulnerable. He lost the elections in June 2015. And he saw, oh, there are 4 or 5 million refugees. Let's weaponize this. How can I weaponize? Open the valves of the refugees, send them to Europe. And there was a huge anxiety about them, as you know. Moreover, there were terrorist attacks in France and other countries. And Mrs. Merkel come to Turkey, German Chancellor. Oh, Erdogan, please stop this refugee flow. What do you want? Okay, then you are not going to criticize me. You are just going to appease me. I'm just going to put pressure on Kurds in Turkey and in Syria. You are going to appease me. You are criticizing me. She said, okay. And they started to appease Erdogan. They started to send money every year. $5 to $10 billion is coming to Turkey to make Turkey as a buffer zone for refugees. So really, Europeans have a huge role in this, why Turkey deteriorated. Really. Started with 2008, when Sarkozy and Merkel, the right-wingers, they said, oh, Turkey cannot be a member of EU. Why? They have a Muslim majority. They have a Muslim majority. Because Turkey had an intention to go into the European Union, and we were benefiting from it. But they showed a cold shoulder. It happened after 2015, weaponizing the refugees, and Kurds and that safe haven was vulnerable, unfortunately. Until then, we have been suffering, and as you know, every day they are doing drone attacks to Rojava, killing so many people, but the world is turning a blind eye on it. No, some lives matter, as you know. If they have leverage, some lives don't matter. Unfortunately, Kurdish lives don't matter again. Unfortunately, they are vulnerable. Second lives are Palestinian lives, as you know. Of course, I'm very sorry what the Jews have suffered 2 weeks ago. But I'm so sorry for what Palestinians are suffering. We have to face this. Palestinian cause, what is it? No, Palestinians were struggling with a secular, let's say, they were struggling with secular institutions. And it had a legitimacy in the world. But Israel extremists were not happy with it. We have to divide this and support the jihadist movements in the Palestinian cause. Support Hamas. They just yellow-lighted, Israel just yellow-lighted Arab countries and Turkey to finance Hamas and make that monster, with, let's say, terrible mentality, which hates Jews, which don't believe in coexistence. They hate Jews. And this is a hatred cycle, unfortunately, which Israel has fed. That had a boomerang effect now. And if we turn a blind eye on what is going in Gaza, they are killing thousands of children there. It is feeding the next generation or next coming years' atrocities, unfortunately. And the third vulnerable identity is Armenians, unfortunately. In the Middle East and South Caucasus, there are 3 vulnerable identities. One is Armenians, the second is Kurds, and third is Palestinians. And these 3 causes, Armenian cause, Kurdish cause, and the Palestinian cause, are the Falklands. If we can solve these 3 causes with peace, that region will live in peace. I'm sure about it. Palestinian cause, Kurdish cause, and Armenian conflict, that region will live in peace. But unfortunately, big powers, great powers, who has hegemony, leverage, whatever, are just triggering these causes. And you know who is winning out of this? Who is winning? Let's say the gun factories and other, as you know, lobbies, so many big, great power rivalries. So we need to focus on it, not scapegoat anybody, not let dehumanize any identity. We cannot do it. You know what Hrant Dink's wife said at the funeral? A regime which makes babies as murderers. That is what it is. Azeri soldiers were killing Armenian civilians. Why are they killing? Why do you kill? Let's say, or a Jew just stabbed a 6-year Muslim boy 26 times, only 4 days ago. How can somebody wake up and look for a boy to stab 26 times? Because he is filled with hatred. The same happened in Europe. An ISIS militant just killed 3 innocent civilians. This world is really going in a very dark period. So we need to focus on really solving the Palestinian issue, Kurdish conflict, and Armenian conflict. Thank you.
Let's get a few questions together and
good. One by one. And one woman and one female.
I'm going to ask you, well, thank you first of all. It was wonderful and very positive thinking. I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. That we've been through so many atrocities. So let's say we are waking up tomorrow morning and we find out that Azeris attack Summit, which is unfortunately a very possible thing.
Anytime.
So what do you think is going to be the behaviors of, first of all, does Armenian government by now has any kind of ability to fight anything? What is going to be the reaction from Russia and from the West?
For Russia, I can say it is already a Russian scenario going on. 45 days ago, Erdogan and Putin met in Sochi. Coincidentally, 2 days later, our President Arayik Harutyunyan resigned. What kind of a coincidence it is? And then, in Artsakh, a presidential election period have started. In those, when Azerbaijan has an intention to invade, let's say, Artsakh, they started the election period. And they made it an excuse. Oh, in my territory, somebody is electing a president. They explained this to the world. Would you just accept this, United States? If Armenians in Glendale, let's say, elect a president, would America tolerate this? I don't think so. Even they wouldn't tolerate. If you have power to defend your cause, they would tolerate, of course. But we didn't have a power. We were vulnerable. And we had maximalist demands, which was, as you know, a Russian finger in 1990s. When we were about to have the autonomy, somebody said, Russians, let's say, oh, don't accept this. Ask for freedom, whatever. That is why we couldn't establish peace those years. Now it was a game. And they just had Artsakh with a catastrophe, of course. Now Armenia is at stake because the plan is this. That is what I heard, of course. Give Artsakh to Azerbaijan. In return, just put pressure on Armenia, open the corridor, which Russians are going to control, with Erdogan, of course, and end the democratic regime in Armenia with a coup attempt, just establish a puppet regime which is going to be in favor of Russia. This is a disaster, guys. This is a disaster, because this is not the Armenia that we dreamed of. That Armenia can never ever be strong, a functioning economy, never. Even in Soviet times, as you know, Soviet universe was like contributing to each other, that kind of a system. Now this system does not contribute to each other, and we don't have oil, we don't have gas, we have nothing. That means it's going to be garrison of Russia for decades. This is a disaster. So we need to avoid this. We have leverage, but in weeks, which your secretary just said, in weeks or months, this can happen. So we need to unite to avoid it. If we can really unite, I'm sure we can avoid it and put pressure on, of course, Biden administration. He can do something to avoid it. And Turkey is the key country. As I told you, Erdogan only cares about transactionalism. But if he doesn't see anybody criticizing about his ambitions, he does it. But if somebody says, oh, Mr. Erdogan, would you consider stopping about that? Don't do it. Let's establish peace. In return, I give you this. This world is like this, unfortunately. But unfortunately, they have no intention to do it. We need to convince them to do it. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we are now like at the end of our
Time.
Oh, then two quick questions we can have.
But in 1 minute we have to
Okay.
like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then stop.
No, you can get the quick question.
Okay, quick
You
question.
can ask in 1 minute.
Because I spoke so long, I'm sorry, I didn't know this was it.
Do you want one?
One question.
Okay. Yes.
This was an excellent talk. Thank you very much. You began your speech talking about how you're trying to do good in Turkey. Now, as far as I understand, you spend your time between Yerevan and Washington, D.C. Do you still feel that you can do any good in Turkey, or do you feel you can only do good outside?
Yeah, Turkey is a lost case, unfortunately, for the short or mid-term. That is what I saw. I was struggling in Turkey to make Turkey as a democratic country, which would benefit all the region, not only Armenians, Kurds, Arabs, and everyone, to be a role model for the world, which has a Muslim majority. But I lost that off. Why? Erdogan is an autocrat. He's not a democrat at all. But look at the opposition side. Look at them. Now, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, do you know him? I don't know. He just made the agreement just giving interior ministry to Ümit Özdağ, which is the new Talat Pasha. So, getting rid of Abdülhamit, we would have Talat Pasha in return. So where is the hope? Hope was HDP, but they repressed HDP. Hope is still HDP, of course, I believe. But unfortunately, if the nations, let's say 80% is in favor of nationalism, then it's a lost case. Of course, we will go on struggling. We will go on struggling. But I decided to struggle from Yerevan, from DC, to help Armenia now, because Armenia is at stake. That will be my mission, and I'll play a non-partisan role. I'll be in Armenia, Turkey, and United States to help the Armenian cause. Now, of course, I want to save the Kurds, Palestinians as well, but now I am focused on the Armenian cause because Armenia is at stake, and all of us need to contribute each other about this cause. Thank you very much.